that you cannot easily interpret with your, especially if you come from Africa, the background where we're coming from, they would call us primitive, but actually, some things are simply, let me use the simpler sentence, are simply strange to proper. You get my point? They're just strange to proper. But Paul saw that time, and he says, you're going to find a time where men will be conformed. He says, do not be conformed to this age. Do not adapt after its external, superficial customs. Don't yield to their ideals and their attitudes. He says, allow the word of God to renew your mind that you may prove that which is good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Because we have the will of God, that which is acceptable in the sight of God, and then we also have the narrative of what the world is saying should be. Now, this is where Christians miss it. The world says, accept everything as they give it. Christianity says, help them who are lost find themselves. The church shouldn't fight them. It's not our role to speak against them, abuse them, but it's our role to reach out for them and help them discover who they really are in God. Are you following what I'm saying? I have sat with young men, young women. The girl says, Papa, I feel I'm in the wrong body. I feel I'm in the wrong body. I'm in the wrong body. I feel I'm a man, but I feel I'm in this body. I feel I'm attracted to this kind of people, but I feel I'm in the wrong body. The world says, then you are in the wrong body. That's what the world will teach. So you're in the, yes, they tell them to agree that you're in the wrong body. So let us help you adjust your body to agree with what you think you are. And that opportunity is even given to children who are 8 or 7 years old. You see what I'm saying? And 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds are being castrated and put on enhancement drugs to help their hormones, make them do what they originally could not do, so they can fit in that context. And I don't blame them, because that's what they know. They're also trying to save their people, but that's all they know. Many of them have not come to the revelation of the gospel. What is the gospel? It is the power of God unto salvation. It is the power of God unto salvation. The challenge with neo-Pentecostalism, the newer breed of Christianity, it has also gone the way of the world. It can't express that power. So our young men and our young women are trapped. The systems have trapped them, especially the most developed nations. If a pastor started this conversation, he would either lose the congregation or be in prison tomorrow morning. But if you've met a person who is born again, really born of God, and they encountered God at an early age, if you go in the innermost being, they know the truth. They know the truth. They probably tried to fight and got to a point where they were losing, and they came to accept that maybe this is just who I am. Maybe. Because some of them were never showed better or have not really experienced a certain power. A certain power. Are you following what I'm saying? This is it's every aspect of life. I might be giving examples, but it's many aspects of life. And so what the world has done now is it has understood the secret. Impress the vision that you want men to see, and then you can inculcate any doctrine you want in their heads. First impress the right vision for them to see. Because once people start to see certain things constantly, a constant vision of things, the consciousness shifts. That's why I've always said the media, the arts, is one of the core vehicles of shifting consciousness. Those of you who have studied nations will understand this. How were nations formed? Have you ever sat back to imagine? Is Uganda since Adam? No. There was a time some people sat down somewhere and designed boundaries based on their own interests, especially for some which were looking for gold, silver, diamond, and slaves and all these kinds of things. And every man wanted their own allodial title. These names of countries, especially in Africa, were other nations' titles, other empires' titles. As one man truly wrote, that the world before nations was a shifting pattern. The Spaniards take over today and they draw a boundary. Tomorrow the Portuguese take over that and draw boundaries. There was no really clear frame of things. The empire that had the strength and grit and will to take over would take over, and they would fight for vast lands and attain as much as they can. And then boundaries shift on how these empires and their narratives shift. But there was a time the boundaries started to become clearer and clearer. And to enforce that, because human beings hate boundaries naturally. And you all agree that nations are imagined communities, isn't it? They're just imaginations. If I take you to the border of Uganda and Rwanda, will you show me and tell me that this is where the line goes? Even the people are the same, isn't it? If you go on the borders of Mbusia, the people are the same. There's no difference. So these are imagined what? But they have sitting governments, parliaments, legislative arms, judicial, armies, courts of arms, all these things. They begin here. But certain tools had to be used. Capitalism. And one of the most ardent, the press. These newspapers you read. Because you're casting vision. That's why some newspapers had nation on them. You understand? Because it's, imagine every morning, somebody has you glued. You're reading every morning. Your consciousness is shifting. Before you know that, people understand the concept of nationalism, what it means to be a nation and a people with a distinct identity. But there are vehicles or tools that had to be used, especially by our colonial masters, to accept that there was a boundary between me and Rwanda or between Congo and Uganda. Certain things had to impress before you. The books you read in class. Draw the map of Uganda. You see? All of that is shifting your consciousness. Now, you're sure you're Ugandan. You see what I'm saying? And you could fight for your nation. So don't underestimate the power of consciousness. It's a very powerful thing. What do you think happens when you're on your phone watching your TikTok videos, Instagram? Your consciousness is shifting. Facebook. Your consciousness is shifting. The televisions. Your consciousness is shifting. I remember the first time I started traveling to Europe. Of course, at least I was born in the 80s, so there are things that my consciousness had started to understand or maybe learn to tolerate. Because that's the intention, really. But it's different when it leaves the TV and you see life. Who understand what I'm saying? Who understands what I'm saying? Okay, if you don't understand it, let me help you understand it. Now, you see, let me talk about the African story. If I told you to define an African woman in your mind, okay? An African woman. Now I'm talking about how our mothers are. If you go back and look at their pictures before they went to America or before they acquired this and that, our grandmothers, there's a picture of how an African woman looked. Do you know that? There's a picture of how an African woman dressed. There's a picture of how an African woman sat. If she was going to sit on a chair, there's a picture of how an African woman sat on a chair. We have that mental picture because we still see it, especially among the grown-up. You could not find an African woman's clothes open to see her breasts. It was not possible. No. The picture of an African woman. She would not go back home. You understand what I'm saying? An African woman could not show her thighs. It was not our thing. But the televisions came. We started seeing them on the beaches. So I remember one of those days I've traveled somewhere in one of those nations. I'm in this wonderful hotel. It has like an open area, swimming pool. It's summer. So I go on my window to see what's there. So these women are walking, some of them are, but the way they are dressed. You understand? I'm like, like there's left nothing. Just one color in here. Like another line here. A sketch. Don't know I couldn't look again. It was so hard for me. At this age, yet I'm also in the young generation. You understand what I'm saying? So I imagined our African boys. In the first service, I told people that they cause young men to turn their eyes upon Jesus and look full on his marvelous face. But I could enter the mind of these people, and I realized for them now, the consciousness had shifted. It was okay for a young man to see the thighs of his auntie. It was okay for a young girl to see the chest of her uncle. It was okay. You understand? Now, even in Africa, some parts, you go to hotels now and find our kids trying to take poses. They can't even swim. She can die on the water trying to take a pose. Are you following what I'm saying? The consciousness is shifting. But it began in the movies. You see what I'm saying? We were watching and it became okay. Can you imagine how many things are becoming okay every day? And the idols the devil is building with us. Some of you maybe have heard of the story. But if you go and study in Germany, many years ago, there was an idol, a comic character that was built after a certain individual. And that character was called Bill Lilly. How many of you have heard of Bill Lilly? Now, Bill Lilly was a character they built, and this was who Bill Lilly was. Bill Lilly was a prostitute, and she only dated rich men. And Bild Lilly hated marriage. She hated marriage. She hated men because she believed that men were the cause of all the problems in the world. Bild Lilly hated children because she had a body that she feared would go out of shape if she carried a child. So she had a certain figure, a certain look that became an icon through. And it is said that during that time, once her story is told and they build comics around it, some of the Germans got disturbed because their children were starting to pattern themselves around that order. And then they built a doll that was also called Lilly, Bild Lilly. Because many children loved the shape of this woman's body, and some were getting consumed by her actions. And it became a big problem in Germany, and some parents started complaining against the books, the comics, and that whole concept, the idol, which I believe was created after a Nephilim spirit. This was an attack on a nation to attack motherhood or parenthood, to attack marriage and identity. When the Germans started fighting this concept, this spirit spread further into the United States of America in the late 50s, coming into the 60s. And they introduced a doll called Barbie. Barbie was the very Bild Lilly in Germany, and started making these dolls and writing stories about her, but trying to build the image of this goddess Bild Lilly. Some of these things you will see in the newest Barbie movie that came out recently. It begins by a very well edited lady. She has a good body, appearing before children, young girls who are holding babies. Some of you have watched the movie. It starts that way. They're holding babies. You know how children love to hold babies? The beginning of that movie, they look at this Barbie doll, this Barbie lady. She's the image. She's the bigger picture. She's the idol. If you recall the times of Nebuchadnezzar, you remember the statues, the things they would build for kings, the images, those idols they would build, sculptors they would make so high and tall. So she's this image, this idol. And then when they look at her and what she brings to them, they get their babies and crush their heads, smash their heads, and they look up to this idol. But many people don't ask themselves the question, what would enter in the consciousness of a little girl to get a baby and crush their head? My daughter has a little baby like this. She has her babies and they have names. One of them is Angel. Angel is a little black doll, but she's the shape of a baby. So one of those days my aunt is cleaning. She gets Angel. Just throws Angel. There was war in my house. Oh no, Jaja, what have you done to Angel? Why did you throw Angel away? She comes and says sorry to Angel. Say sorry to Angel. Man, it was World War. Why did they throw Angel? You see what I'm saying? My daughter at 3 knows that babies are supposed to be loved. But these ones are crushing. It's in that very period when the Barbie doll entered the homes of all Americans and the conversation of abortion came. The spirit of abortion became a conversation. By the 70s, it was legal to abort. You see the connection? Those little dolls. Those little dolls that you have in your homes.